Hi, you're listening to Boggy Talk, Faith Conversations in the Mud, a resource of Church on Bayshore. Boggy Talk is recorded on Boggy Bayou in Niceville, Florida, and is hosted by Justin Wyatt and James Ross, pastors at Church on Bayshore. We typically want every matter of faith and life to have crystal clear answers, but it isn't always that easy. This podcast digs in to help Christians think with a kingdom mentality about topics that sometimes get muddy and bog us down. So let's dive in.
Hey, welcome to Boggy Talk. Hope you're doing well. We are kicking off a new series today called Resolved. And before we dive into that, diving into saying, hey, James Ross, how you doing?
I'm good, man. I am resolved to tell you how I'm doing. I'm good.
Good.
So, December is like insanely busy.
Insanely. And somebody asked me a question about something that happened in December, and I was like, I literally don't remember.
Yeah. I mean, I shouldn't talk about that because you told me on our last Boggy Talk not to wear busyness as a badge of honor. But then January is like a different busy, like because I'm trying to get a lot of things, play catch up, and then also try to figure out kind of moving forward. But it's a good time of year. I enjoy the cold weather. I mean, I wouldn't want it all year.
No,
but
it's nice. It's a nice week.
Yeah, and then the NFL playoffs start this week, and I'm super excited.
Yeah, and we do pre-record these, so we don't know the results at time of recording.
I'm so bummed that
yes,
today Georgia is likely not the national champion.
Oh, come on.
And I can't officially say that.
They won because no one except Alabama likes Alabama, right?
Say what you think is going to happen so people realize how dumb we are.
I think, every Georgia fan's like, we're going to win, but we might not. We're very realistic because we're used to heartbreak, but Georgia's winning. They got a chip on their shoulder. They're breaking the Nick Saban curse. It's going to happen. It's going to be close, but they're going to win. That's my prediction. And if I'm wrong, I'm probably really sad this morning, but also I love it, but I also don't care that much.
I think it's going to be closer, but I think Alabama is going to win. I just think that
I know that's kind of
guys can't put enough points.
Yeah. The quarterback situation. That's been a controversy at our house because Christy really likes Stetson Bennett. The guy he was a walk-on, and she's like cheering the underdog, and our son Josiah does not like him, and he's a Georgia fan. He wants other quarterback. Anyway, we're digressing into things that most people don't care.
Well, we'll see.
So it is. We are Georgia
people
fans.
are listening to this, even though that happened last night.
I know, and we're moving on to 2022 and things that are happening. And here's what we're talking about these next few weeks. We're really talking about how every new year, people make goals, people make resolutions. They do. It's like this thing that
you may not have known that.
Do you?
You learned something new on Boggy Talk today.
And so what we're talking about is why do we do that? Why are people statistically making fewer resolutions? And really all this centers around there's pretty common themes around resolutions that people make, the kinds of resolutions people make about exercises and weight and organize, those kinds of things. We're going to talk through some of those in the coming weeks. But ultimately what we want to talk about is this tension of how goals are good and resolutions are good. Yeah. And as Christians, we should be striving to, become more like Jesus. And leverage our lives for the kingdom, but also those things are not our identity. So it gets kind of boggy because we should have goals and they're important, but then they're not important, but they are important, but they're not.
That's good. I'm glad that we did not go with what you originally proposed and we just would talk about the top 10 Baptist resolutions that were made at the convention.
Oh man, that would be a snooze fest.
Yeah, I resolved that we no longer make any resolutions. I do look forward to kind of talking through and I think we got a list of 10 things and kind of categorize them from some website. I can't even remember what it was, but Tony Robbins or, Joel Osteen. But I do look through.
It's like impossible to say his name without then just smiling really big.
Tony Robbins?
No, Joel Osteen, because that's just how he is on every book cover. Anyway, moving on. We will quickly digress.
Hey, dude, if you got $600,000 in the wall at your church building, I mean, you got a lot of smiles.
If you don't know what we're talking about, Google that. Lakewood Church, money in the wall.
Yeah. Anyway,
I wish that would happen here. Maybe there's like when we demolish our offices, they'll just be
That's what smells in the offices.
Yes.
Rusty money.
Oh,
anyway.
man. I wish.
Yeah, I doubt it. So anyway, it's probably eaten by squirrels or so. But so yeah, I'm looking forward to talking about, personal development and finances and fitness and all those things. But I really do think that we need to just use this episode to address the fact that there's a staggering number of people who are just not making resolutions anymore in 2021 or now in 2022, largely because of the COVID epidemic.
The COVID.
Yeah.
You got to say it like that.
Sorry,
still.
the COVID. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think hopefully what these past few years have taught us and have revealed to us, though I think we are still like to pretend it's not true, is that we're really not in control of a lot.
Yeah.
We really can't control a lot of circumstances. We can, we are responsible, but there's a lot of things that are out of our control, and it's really revealed that. And, we as a church, when we started 2020, had great plans for 2020, and so many organizations, businesses, and churches alike, 2020, the Vision 2020,
right.
There's so many
we
things.
Didn't do that, but yeah,
we didn't because we thought it was cheesy.
Yeah,
but so many people use that as a theme because it's a nice round or a whole number, a decade, and
round number.
Round, I guess, but it's an even number.
Yeah.
But it's that
I had 2 zeros in it, and they're round. So
yeah.
But hey, so I think this would be healthy. Why don't we just kind of process through kind of how we have felt, if you want to say paralyzed, or if you want to say hindered, or just challenged by the living, in the world we've lived in the last 2 years. So let's go back to March 2020, and let's go back in time right now. If you're with us in your car, don't close your eyes. But if you're not, close your eyes and take yourself back to March 2020. I was actually reading my old tweets and Facebook status post, whatever they're called. And I didn't have an Instagram back then. Well, I had 2 pictures, one of me in a mustache and one of my daughter asleep at a table. But what kind of take me through what you went through?
Well, I think just like everyone, it was so much like what in the world is actually happening. We started that time thinking, if everyone remembers, this will just last a couple of weeks.
Right. 15 days
done.
to slow the curve.
We'll slow the curve.
Remember that?
That seemed realistic at the time. Then it kept extending and kept extending. And I remember as a family, we're like, the phone would ring from the school and we're like, here it comes. They're going to extend it again. No. And that was hard, not just for us, but for so many people who were, had to transition and pivot, and I think what it really did was just show us that we're not in control. I think it was hard, it was unsettling, and I think we in that longed for normal again,
right? And
really did whatever we could to get back to what we thought was normal again. The fact where we maybe took some things not as seriously as we should have. Yeah, that's all up for debate, and we're not getting into that. But I think, and also I think, and part of this, we have to recognize for anyone who's listening to this who's not in this community, we live in Florida, and so Florida had a very different experience than much of the states.
Yeah.
And we have family in other states, and we were talking about, our state government was probably one of the least restrictive, and so whether you're pro that or against that did affect how we experienced all this.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that for Floridians and Texans, maybe, the severity of all this certainly isn't what it was for my people. I know that in Illinois and New York, and but I do still think that there was an effect. I remember in the onset, whenever it was all happening, I was really mad. Because I just disagreed with the way that we were handling, the shutdown. And, again, I got over my anger, in a couple weeks, and
good job,
and tried to be, supportive. And, I do think that at the time, the president was communicating, he cared very much about business and the economy and all that. And so I think, even though I'm not a huge Trump supporter, I think that was helpful for me to say, hey, he is very concerned about this, and he communicated that very consistently. Again, not everything else all that great, but I think I think what it caused me to really internalize is how little control I have over so many things, but I don't recognize that until they're all taken away from me.
Right.
Yeah.
I think another effect of it too, as a leader in a church, but then also, at home, was very much the recognition that you cannot make everyone happy. And as a pastor, we want people to, be at peace. And for me, it was very much a realization of like, you know what? Like, that's not my job. And I can't. And I have to seek the Lord. We as a team have to seek the Lord and do what we feel He's leading us to do. And people are just I'm a middle child, so I like for there to be peace, and I'm a pretty good peacemaker.
Yeah.
But I had to learn to be okay with some things that just were not going to be at peace, and recognize that did not change God's opinion of me,
Right.
or my worth, because I couldn't bring peace to a certain situation.
that's
And that
good.
applies at home too.
Yeah, that's
there was
good.
just things that were hard. It was like, why isn't this getting any better? And it was because we're stuck inside, 8 people all together, and kids are trying to do school. And it was an incredibly humbling time.
Yeah.
I think, as people, we should, one of the things it did for me is kind of, like you think about Jacob wrestling with the Lord.
Yeah.
And he's like, you walk away with a limp. Kind of like we should be walking with a little bit of a limp here, because, we recognize our own mortality and lack of control over everything.
No, that's good. Yeah. Yeah. And I do think that there's been residual effects for me in terms of planning. Like I know, that
Whole
summer.
thing's a lot looser, right?
Yeah. And that summer when we started, back, because we, in Florida, we pretty much started back. I mean, everybody was vacationing here, even though they were criticizing us summer of 2020. But
isn't it funny how every spike in Florida was like following a tourist season?
Oh,
and
yeah.
And then it all kind of died down after. Yeah.
I think I've mentioned before that I knew a guy who on social media was so serious about COVID and restrictions. And then I was texting with him and he was here in Florida vacationing. I'm like,
okay.
You're definitely, and there was a lot of that, there are all the nuances that you would say of, the religious right being, fundamental and anti-trusting. That's certainly a part of it, and then all the things you would say about there being liberal elites who are using as control. That is a part of it. Like all those things, there's truth to all those things.
Yeah, it's not simple. It's very complicated.
Yeah. So. And that's how life always is. It's not either or. Very often it's both and.
Yeah.
When you diagnose and when you try to figure out what to do. So I think it was very revealed to us. And so I think God gave me a posture of learning. And so, and observing. And I am a learner. And so just because I'm so stupid naturally. So,
you got to learn.
That's used to my advantage. But I will just say that it became hard for me to even I'm the kind of dude who literally knows where I'm going next year, plans out, all that. It came hard for me to even say yes to an appointment for the next month.
Yeah.
And even now, as we're trying to think through our campus plan, I'm like, what's the world even going to look like in 5 years, And I think there's some healthiness to that. And I do think I think there's a tension to manage in life in general of making a plan and realizing, like James says, hey, you need to say if the Lord wills, because you don't even know if you'll be here tomorrow.
Yeah, that is the truth right there. Yeah, if the Lord wills. I think that's one thing that in every realm we kind of recognize. We used to think 5-year plan, 10-year plan, and we're getting into the goals that we should have. We're going to talk a little more about that. But it has been a lot more sobering as we make those things, because what you just said, we're asking ourselves, what is our campus? We have no idea what the world's going to look like in 5 years. And I think we knew that before.
Yeah, we did.
We knew that, but we didn't know that. We had not necessarily, our generation,
you're
not
right.
fully experienced.
No,
that.
we hadn't, at all.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you're right. So I think that, this just reveals, for those who are struggling because of all this to make a plan, I think it reveals a tension that's always there. And so the question now would be, so what do we do, in light of the fact that there is uncertainty? And, I just think that some main things are transcendent of our circumstances. So there are some things that have to be a priority regardless. And COVID really caused me, the shutdowns of COVID really caused me to say, are these things the priority I say they are as a pastor,
Yeah.
And so I think for every person, every year needs to be that questioning of, are the main things in my life?
Yeah, so let's talk about that. So you said there are some goals or some things that are transcendent. So what are those things?
Well, we have to always make sure. I was just going to say something completely stupid off the wall, but
Nah.
no, let's go back to serious. Yeah, I think we need to be people of the word. I think, we're all influenced. We're all, no matter how static the world is,
Right.
or we're all focused and headed somewhere and moving in a direction. And what I want to be informing me and shaping me more than anything else is the word of God.
Right.
And so I think we need to be people of the word of God.
Right. And I think what's great about that is true. And COVID didn't change that.
No,
Like,
it didn't. In fact, it gave us more opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, I think we saw people had more time, and people were at least initially, more engaged in the word, because I think it with the world coming to a grinding halt for a time, people were like, "Oh man, we need to be serious about this." And so, but that should have been for all of us,
already,
happening, and it should still be, even though things are somewhat more like they were.
Yeah, and then I would say, so if we are people of the word, then we know that we're supposed to be people who equip others to be people of the word. So make disciples. And that looks different for all of us in different seasons of life, but primarily the people who I have proximity to in my home. Obviously, if we have people in our home, and then, who does God put on our heart to try and mentor in the faith? And so I think that, that should always be happening regardless of what's going on around us. And then, and then sharing the gospel, building relationships with people who don't know Christ, which is really a part of discipleship, but it's kind of the first part of discipleship, and helping them actually see who Jesus is. Using our gifts. How can I use my gifts? What resources I have. How can I give generously? How can I have community with other believers to kind of see how that's all going and shape me and all that. I mean, I think those things are just things that we have to do all the time.
All the time. And, as we talk about these transcendent goals, and then we get into like the, why aren't people making resolutions? And we talk some about the uncertainty, and that uncertainty has continued over into 2022. And so people, I think, have kind of taken this, and I think we can default this sometimes when we become despondent or feel discouraged, this fatalistic view of life where it's like, well, I can't control anything, so why even try? Why even make goals? Because it's kind of pointless, because something can just happen and derail it. And that's wrong.
I would encourage you to read the book of Ecclesiastes, because I think as you read that, you'll identify, you're like, you're right. It's meaningless, all this stuff. But he comes back several times, and the point of Ecclesiastes is so God and trusting him is really what only thing that really matters. And this is from a dude who had everything. I mean, probably, arguably, no one's wealth is ever compared to Solomon. I mean, even some secular, publications have talked about who are the wealthiest people who ever lived. Solomon is right up there. And this is a guy not from Israel wasn't this mighty kingdom, in comparison to some of Egypt, Rome, the other powers. And so I think, at the end of the day, there's a lot of things we do, but really they're vanity.
Yeah.
And that, I don't mean they're vain in the sense that, Instagram vain, but I mean they're vain in the sense that they're really meaningless without tied to the main things.
Yeah, so that's an interesting point, because I think that's where we want to head in these next few weeks as we talk about different goals that we set and resolutions and being resolved, is that these things, goals, resolutions, do matter.
Yeah.
But they're not ultimate.
Yeah.
And so really, how do we as Christians not fall into the trap of making goals for to be a better you, to be a better me, but to say like this, these are the transcendent goals for my life.
Yeah. That
I am a servant of the Lord and I want to build the kingdom. So how do my goals fall in line to help support that?
Yeah.
And I think, that's where we tend to, we don't connect those dots. We kind of stop short at, I should exercise more. Okay, so I'm going to exercise more.
Yeah.
Well, why? Let's get to the root of the why. Why would you resolve to lose weight or to be organized? Like all of these things, I think, need to be tied to a greater purpose, or else we're just kind of setting ourselves up for not just disappointment, but really setting ourselves up for self-righteousness too.
Yeah,
if it's not with this mindset of I want to serve the kingdom, I want to be quote unquote better, because I want to be able to serve more, to bless more, to build the kingdom more.
Yeah, and I think then why you're doing those things becomes a part of your identity, and then it makes you able to persevere in the midst of adversity and in the midst of uncertainty in some of those things that are important. Maybe not, they're not main things, but they're secondary things, but they're still important. I think if you have the right why, then, you can persevere. And I think, as we talk about, the main things, the reality is some of the main things, but specifically the secondary things, there are seasons that you can't do those secondary things. There are certain things during COVID that were a challenge. And I think we need to recognize okay, maybe because of my health or because of my mental health or because of a family issue or because of the world shutdown, I can't do X right now. But I am not content with never doing X again.
Right.
I'm content that, not doing X isn't my fault. As far as it depends on me, I'm doing everything. But I'm just kind of embracing the season, I'm ensuring that it's just a season and then embrace that season. So if I can't do X right now, then what are some other ways that I can, and pour that time and that energy into making me, more whole, or having more peace, shalom,
Right.
I think that, and I wrestle with that because we've been in this for almost 2 years, and there's some people who, for 15 days or for 30 days or for 5 months, kind of withdrew from biblical community or withdrew from evangelism, and they're still not doing it. And, personal opinion, I just, so if I were, not able to see my children or not able to see my grandchildren or not able to be a part of the church or not be able to be evangelistic, I think there's got to come a point where I just am willing to take the risk, to not continue. Well, when does it end?
Right.
And people have asked for my opinions, and I've told them I'm going to give you my opinion, but ultimately, just know, it's between you and the Lord, and I don't know if you're listening to the Lord or not. That's between you and the Lord. But and I'm talking about COVID specifically, but I think people who are sick mentally, struggling with something related to mental health, I just think you've got to wrestle through those things. And I hate the word balance because I don't think you'll ever achieve that. But I think you have to realize, if there's no tension, you're probably imbalanced. You know?
Yeah. You're constantly trying to figure out how do you do this? And like you said, there's seasons of life where it just may not be possible to do X. I think of, having kids in the home right now. There's there's never going to be a convenient time to do some things that I know I need to do. I think this season we're in of parenting, where we have our youngest is 5 and our oldest is 14. They're up early and they're up late because of homework. And so I could sit around and say, God, it's your fault I'm in this season because it's never quiet. So I can't focus on studying your word because it's never quiet in my house. What am I supposed to do? Get up at 3, you could essentially excuse yourself from some of these transcendent things rather than saying, okay, you know what? This is my life right now. This is my circumstance. But these goals that I know, these are transcendent goals, I have to figure out how this works in my life right now. Because if I don't, I'm going to pay for it, and everyone else around me is going to pay for it.
Yeah, I think a more pressing one for you and I on that is investing in other people.
Yeah.
I think that me and my wife and you and your wife have a desire to, not that we're awesome, but to reproduce ourselves in terms of, making disciples and mentoring other couples. And we do that, but we're not able to do it at the capacity that we will do it, Lord willing, in the next season of life when our kids are older. And I think it's how can I do that now? And realize, hey, this is just not the season. And I have friends who are older than me and their kids are older, and I envy that part of their life, but I also don't want to miss this season and the influence I have on my children, So
that's really good. I think one of the things I'm learning too is that, in all this, it's if my circumstances don't change, I still want to change.
Right.
And there's some things I can do possibly to improve my circumstances, but at the same time, I want to be more like Jesus. And if this thing doesn't happen, if this circumstance doesn't happen, I still want to change. So that should inform our goals. How even if all these things I want to change don't change, these people don't change, the circumstances don't change, how is God wanting to change me?
Right. So this is kind of, and I guess we need to start bringing it home, but I think something that, we can quickly address is the realization, like, we're taught like character trumps circumstances, but at the same time, circumstances will largely influence people and shape them. And sometimes people are in circumstances that are really hard to overcome. And the studies, and Malcolm Gladwell actually writes about this and did a podcast series on this in his Revisionist History podcast. But the number one way that people are able to overcome their circumstances and, rise to better character, rise to better things is by having an advocate. And I think that for me, like, that's one of the realizations here is like, as far as it depends on me, not only am I going to do the things that, make me healthy, but as far as it depends on me, how can I look and help people out of their circumstances? Because really people do get oppressed, for lack of a better word, by their circumstances. And I think as a church, we're constantly saying, what has God given us? As God gives us freedom, as God gives us resources, as God gives us talent to help other people out of their circumstances. I think that has to be on our mind.
Yeah, I love what you're saying there. That's the advocate. Like that's the Holy Spirit is called the advocate, and that's how He has gifted the church to be that. As in community with each other, as a body of believers, we are called to advocate for each other to, help us see the blind spots, but then also to say like, hey, we want to help you. I want to help you. We want to do this together because we want to see His kingdom come, His will be done on earth as it is in heaven. I think, we as church, the big church, the church doesn't always do that super well. I think we're really good at like, do this without helping people do this, and advocating for people and helping, walking alongside, encouraging, challenging, holding each other accountable. That's all a piece of that.
Yeah. And ultimately, I mean, as we move in the next few weeks into resolutions, like, that's the why for these resolutions is because I want to be a better advocate because, I'm going to have the perfect glorified body, whatever that looks like in heaven, like I'm going to be my tension, my personal development is going to be what it needs to be in heaven. And so like the reason I want to apply self-care, to use a popular term, is not just so that I would look better and feel better about myself, but so that I would be in a position to be used by God for His glory in the lives of others more. And that's why I am driven I am resolved because I think as long as I'm here, I want to work towards your progress in the faith, as the Apostle Paul said.
Yeah, that's good. I think, and that's where we fall short. When all of our goals are focused on me being better, the self being better, they fall short. And it ultimately is going to leave us empty. So if you're setting goals for the new year, or if you have, I would just say in the next few weeks, we're going to dive into some specific goals, ways that people make goals, whether it's health or finances, personal development, those things. But before we dive into that, we want to ask, you should ask, we should be asking, how do these things that I think I should do, these goals, these resolutions, how do they support the transcendent goal of God's kingdom and serving the kingdom, and see if there's a connection, and if there's not, pray through that, think through that, evaluate and make that connection and help ask the Holy Spirit to help you see how it can further the kingdom.
Yeah. And if you feel stuck, like, because of COVID or because of circumstances in your life, maybe it's your marriage, maybe it's an issue with a family member, maybe it's a health issue, a mental health issue, I just want to encourage you to reach out. Of course, you can reach out to us and we'd love to talk with you and probably connect you with other people who can help you better. But you certainly have people who are willing to listen and help you. And just don't stay there. Don't stay where you are. You have people who want to help you. I assure you of that. You'll be surprised. So, yeah, I mean, we should have called this like the COVID episode or something. Because
the COVID recap 2022. Because, and I think that's another aspect.
This was good for me, Justin.
Yeah, it's good to process. And but with every variant, now dealing with the Omicron variant, it just seems like we're constantly on this roller coaster with COVID. And when will it be done? We don't know. But we know.
I don't know so much. And what I realize is so many people don't know so much.
Yeah. But we think, that's another Boggy talk. Yeah, we think people know a lot more. Yeah, people,
and we're so quick to like assume that like everybody's evil, right? Like the people who want everybody to be vaccinated. Oh, they must be putting microchips in us. It's like, or even if they're wrong that everybody should be vaccinated, they just think based on what they know that's the best. And then the people who are anti that, it's like, we just assume they want everybody to die. It's like, or maybe just based on what they know, you know what I mean? They think that's best. And maybe we should talk about it, you know?
Yeah. This is, I don't know why you just said made me think of this, but one of the things I do here at the church is we work with communications. And so I see it's like, I check out resources and stuff. And I just this past week saw that there's these AIs, these artificial intelligences, these programs that you can like pay a subscription to and basically tell them a topic. And it will write a blog post for you that you can post as your own. And I thought that, and I thought, that's
Did Mark Driscoll invent this?
I'm like, this, right?
But
it was like, I was just like, that's why we're in such a mess, is because half the things people are putting out there and acting like they're experts, they didn't even write, probably didn't even read, and they're posting it as like being an expert. I was like, that's terrible. And I kind of like wanted to sign up for a free trial just to see what it would do, like with church stuff. Not post it, but just
is this like the auto tune for writers?
It basically is. It's like we're going to it's basically enter a few keywords, and our AI will just write your next blog spot for you.
No
and
way.
Yeah, that was crazy.
That's weird.
It is so weird, and people do it.
But that's what politicians have been doing for years.
Exactly. So I don't know. Whatever you just said made me think of that. And
anti-vaccine. All right, here it is. Here's what the speech for the president.
Everybody being an expert. And all these people pretend to be experts. I'm like, they probably didn't even write this stuff. Have they even read anything? Well, that's for another podcast on conspiracy theories. Podcast. But hey, join us the next few weeks. We're going to be talking.
We're not doing a podcast on conspiracy theories. We're not doing that because
that is over our heads. Hey, let's ask this service to write our next script, and let's just read it next time. We could do that.
Ooh, that sounds good.
You're writing on an idea. So next week, James has a big idea. But hey,
this is a good rant, Justin. We should. Hey, for our subscription, paid subscription, you can access
all of our rants that we edit out.
Yeah, Boggy. What's it called when they have like extra
the outtakes?
No.
The B-roll,
like YouTube, the vault,
the vault. Yeah,
they'll have like a
Boggy Talk
subscribe
vault.
Premium or whatever. Right. Boggy Talk Premium.
There you go for 99 cents.
You can hear our conspiracy theories.
So hey, the next few weeks,
our top 5 church members.
That's right, the ones we love the most.
Yes,
but we're talking about personal development. We're talking about fitness. Talking about finances, to how we serve our time. And I hope you'll join, because I think these are good conversations for us, because these aren't just goals and resolutions we should be making at the beginning of a year. They're constantly things we should be evaluating and asking God to use us for His kingdom. We're going to talk about those. So tune in next week as we dive into fitness.
Woo!
Yeah, it's gonna be good. We're gonna film the next one running.
This is actually what I work out so that my son, I can beat him.
That's right. Just swing your arms and your watch. Thinks you're exercising. Hey, thanks for tuning in. Join us next time.
Thanks for listening to Boggy Talk. We are so glad you joined in the conversation. Go ahead and subscribe so you don't miss a beat.